Hello, welcome to another edition of What the Folk. It's November, so more tales from the briny depths, as we're still doing sea stories, kind of. I don't think we could find enough Selkie stories. Anyway, so this week I'm giving you the tale of how the Isle of Man got its name. Now, the Isle of Man is named after Manilyn MacLear, the Irish god of the sea. Well, the Celtic god of the sea, I suppose, is more apt. Though there is something of a very peculiar pantheon to Ireland, though really we can sort of think of it as a deviation in Wales, Scotland, and Cornwall, and to a lesser extent Brittany. Manilyn is an interesting figure as gods go. He's a god of the sea, but he's also a psychopomp, meaning he ferries the dead to the underworld, but which there are a great many in Irish mythology, many planes and heavens and all manner of things. But there are two psychopomps in Celtic mythology. There is Manannán, and then there's the Morrigan, the Black Raven, who is more of a more traditional Valkyrie-esque figure, I guess you could say. It's a rather long story today, so I'll be quick here. Enjoy. Island of the Ocean God. Muc which means son of hazel, was, in fact, the son of the great god of eloquence and literacy, Ogma. He had so named his son, for the hazel is a mysterious tree, and Ogma used it to signify the third letter of the alphabet, which he had devised. And indeed, Muc was the third son of Ogma, for his brothers were Macgrin, son of the sun, and Macret, son of the plough. The three brothers were married to three sisters. Macgren was married to the goddess Ir, while Macret was married to her sister, Fotla, and Maccullen was married to the youngest sister, named Banda. There came a time when the gods themselves fell from grace, when the sons of Mil conquered them, and it was said that Macgren was slain by the great druid Armagen, that Maclet met his end from the sword of Eamon, and that Maccullen was slain by the spear of Eber. When the gods were defeated by the sons of Mil, the wives of Macgrenin, Macret, and Macrill, Ir, Fotla, and Bamba, went to greet the conquerors of the land of Insfeil, the island of destiny. "Welcome, warriors," cried Ir. "To you who have come from afar this island shall henceforth belong, and from the setting to the rising sun there is no better land, and your race will be the most perfect the world has ever seen." Armagen, the druid, asked her what she wanted in reward for this blessing. "That you name this country after me," replied Air. But her sisters chimed in that the country should be named after them. So Armagen promised that Air would be the principal name for the country, while the poets of Mil would also hail the land by the names of Fotla and Bamba. So it has been until this day. Now the sons of Ogma were gods, and therefore the ever-living ones. They could not die completely, and so their souls were passed on through the eons, and in the rebirth of Maccullen he began to lament the lost days of power. Of the days he had been happy with Bamba, he grew bitter and resentful with each rebirth, until he was reborn as a petty thief in the kingdom of Ultai, which is one of the 5 principal kingdoms of Air. Each province was called Kyrd, or fifth, and fifth made up the whole, and the whole, one indivisible, was governed by the Eard Rai, or High King. There was no better thief in all of Uld than Maccullen, and he became a terror of the land. His deeds came to the ears of the High King himself, and he sent his personal Brithon, or judge, named Dubchak, to the provincial king of Urtai, saying, "Maccullen must be captured and punished." Eventually, Maccullen the thief was caught, and he was taken before the High King of Brihon, and there was a tall, white-haired man standing by Brihon's side. They called him by the name of the ancient god of war, which was Suket. "Why should he not kill you for your evil life, Maccullen?" demanded Brugta the Brihon. Now Maccullen was full of guile. "Kill me now, Brihon. I have reached my last rebirth on this earth. I cannot descend lower than a thief. I will have been wiped from Brabton board of this world." Brabton which means Black Raven, was a wooden board game which many compared to the Eastern game of chess. Yet, he added with evasive craft, kill me now, and there's no hope of redemption, and no hope of redemption for my sins. Spare me, and perhaps there's still some goodness in me soul, whereby I might change me life for the better. Now, MacCullin spoke with irony in mocking tones, but his words held some truth. The Brehon pondered and could reach no decision. Finally, it was Sukat who said, "The decision is not for us to make, for man is often flawed in his perceptions of his fellows. What is justice for one is injustice for another. So, let us leave it to the Creator to decide. You will have the judgment of the sea." Now, the judgment of the sea can be a terrifying thing, but MacCullin, who had lived many lifetimes, was not afraid, and Sukat had the wrists of MacCullin bound in a chain of iron, which he fastened with a padlock with his own hands, and he flung the key into the waves of the sea, saying, "Lose not that chain until the key be found and brought to you." The Brehon then had MacCullin taken to a boat, which is called a curragh. The boat was without oars and without sails, and no food nor drink placed in it. The boat, containing MacCullin, was rowed several miles from the coast of Uldhai and cast adrift. The fate of MacCullin was left to whichever way the winds and tides took him. Whoever found him could make a slave of him. Now, of all the ancient gods, one of the last to live upon the earth with their ancient powers was Manannán mac Lir, the tempestuous god of the oceans, who, with his angry breath, could raise large white-crested waves, which could wreck entire fleets of ships. At the time of the fall of the gods, Manannán mac Lir had retired to his favourite isle, called Inisfalga, which lay between Inisfail and the Isle of the Mighty. Eventually, the isle became called after the great Manannán, and every manxman is called in his own tongue Manachai. Now, Manannán, seeing the plight of MacCullin, reborn in a weak human body, was moved to compassion. He remembered the ancient days when he and MacCullin and the other children of Danu had fought the evil Formai on the plains of Towers to claim the Isle of Destiny. So Manannán breathed gently on the ship and sent a current which turned its bows towards his own mist-shrouded island of Inisfalga. But even Manannán's breath could not break the lock on the chain which bound MacCullin's wrist. Several days the little boat without oars and sails, and with MacCullin more dead than alive, bumped against a rocky shore. Now on this island there were living two wise old men, named Cundrai and Romlil. Both had heard the words of the Son of God, and preached the new religion of love and forgiveness. They saw the half-dead MacCullin, and realized that his crimes must have been great for him to be cast into the sea in such a fashion. Yet they took him from his boat and laid him in their own beds, nursed him until he recovered his wits and strength. As MacCullin was recovering, Condril and Romil spoke to him of the Creator and his Son and the new religion of love and brotherhood, and as they spoke, they did their best to unfasten the chain around MacCullin's wrists, but they could not do it, so no matter how hard they tried. MacCullin laughed. "In a previous life I was a god. As I was once, so will your new God and his Son become, cast out and forgotten, when they no longer serve the needs of the people." "You are proud, MacCullin. Our Lord taught, 'Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven.'" MacCullin laughed again. "If poverty is the spirit of virtue, then it does no man little good. When men are poor in spirit, then the proud and haughty oppress them. When I was God, men were true and determined in spirit, and resisted oppression. But to him that smiteth thee on the cheek, offer the other." MacCullin sneered. "He who courts oppression shares the crime. If that is the teaching, then you are inviting further injury at the hands of the oppressor and the thief. Him that taketh away thy cloak, forbid not to take thy coat also. Give to every man that asketh of thee. Blessed be the poor, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." MacCullin chuckled deeply, shaking his head. "Now this new religion is ideal for a thief such as me. It tells people to accept with good grace when I rob them. The poor in spirit will not fight me. This is a good land, and here I will prosper as a thief, if all believe as you do. I will set forth and find a smithy to break my chains asunder. McCullough set forth, walking along the seashore, leaving the wise old men, Cumrai and Romlil, in sorrow behind him. As he walked on the foreshore, he heard a gentle singing, and around a headland of rocks he came across a beautiful woman. The spot was called Langness, in the parish of Kirk Mallow. The girl sweetly sang, "Come to our rich and starry caves, our home amid the ocean waves. Our coral caves are walled around with the richest gems in the ocean found, and crystal mirrors clear and bright reflect all in magic light." McCullough stopped and gazed upon the beautiful, sad face. It reminded him of one of whom he had loved long ago, the face of his wife in a former life, of Banba. "Who are you, young maiden?" he demanded. The young girl started and looked up at McCullough, and her eyes lit up in a smile of happiness. "I am for you, son of Hazel," she said. "That cannot be. Nothing is for me unless I steal it. I am a thief, and will take what I want." "I am Blanid," went on the girl, and reaching down beside the rock on which she sat, she drew forth a basket filled with coral and precious stones and other fabulous metals garnered from the ocean bed. "You may have these, for we are all thieves now." "I will not accept that which is given when it is my place to take," cried McCullough in disgust. "But if you can break the chains on my wrists, I'll accept your gifts." Suddenly, Blanid threw her arms around McCullough, and so surprised was he, and so great her strength, that she dragged him to the edge of the sea and plunged in. Though he struggled, she drew him down towards the dwellings of the merfolk that lived beneath the waves, and Blanid took McCullough to a beautiful city under the sea. It was a place of many towers and golden minarets, and stood in all magnificence. It was deep down, beyond the region of the fishes, where there was air, which was strangely clear, and the atmosphere serene. The streets were paved in coral and shining kinds of pebble, which reflected like sunbeams reflected off glass. The streets and squares were on every side. Buildings were embossed with mother of pearl and shells of numerous colours, and there were flashing crystals to decorate their walls. But around the circular perimeter were countless wrecks of ships, fearful wrecks strewn on the slimy bottom. Yet the city was protected from them, and among the wrecks McCullough saw the decomposing bodies of men, women, and children. There were countless eyeless skeletons, all scattered, and on which the fishes gnawed, and from the dead people's skulls, which worms and fish inhabited, these arose a fearful wailing sound. The noise was so penetrating that McCullough had to stop his ears. "What manner of place is this?" he gasped. Blanid smiled and pointed. He could see people moving through the streets. He gasped and recognized his brothers and the other children of Danu. "This is our home now, and this could be your home, for you wish to exist by what you steal. The gods and goddesses are only left with theft in this new world. We have built our city from the ships that we entice to our mist-shrouded island and wreck upon the rocks above. Each ship comes tumbling down through the seas to our city, and we may take from the great heaps of pearls, wedges of gold, inestimable stones, unvalued gems. Thus our city prospers." McCullough swallowed hard. "And the souls of the dead sailors? Look at the bodies of the dead and the drowned women and children. Do you not hear their cries?" "They are but poor in spirit," Blanid said. "We grow accustomed to their wailing and take what we must." McCullough grew sick in his soul and stared into the face of Blanid, and saw it was the face of Bamba. "Is this what we are reduced to?" he whispered. Where once the children of Danu had bestrode the earth in goodness and in strength of spirit, McCullough realized they had descended to thieves who preyed on the spiritual tragedy of others. "This is but a shadow show of the choice you can make," replied Blanid. "If there are choices still, then I choose to be released from my purgatory," cried McCullough, and he held out his chained wrists. "Alas, wealth and prosperity can be yours, but we cannot unchain your wrists," replied Blanid. "You may remain in the realm of the ocean god as you are, or you may be reborn in the new religion and release your soul from its eternal bitterness. Here, we are only an illusion of the past." With that, he found himself back on the headland of Langness in Kirk Mallow. He found himself staring in the grey seas and thought he heard the whispering sound, "Come rich and starry caves, our home amid the ocean waves. Slowly he retraced his footsteps to where he had left Condrin and Romuil. They were standing as he had left them, for in earthly time he had not been long gone from their sight. They smiled joyfully at his return. "Tell me more about your son and his god." And so they taught him, and he came to believe with a passion. And they called him Macalladus, for that was the form of his name in the language of the new religion. So Macalladus, who had been the foremost thief of Uldhai, felt repentance for his past lives, and Condri and Romil took him to a stream and poured water over his head and confirmed him in the new religion. That evening, Condri was cooking a fish that he had caught, and he had brought it to the table to divide it between the three of them. As he cut open the fish, they saw a key in the belly, and McCullough recognised it as the same one which Sukat had locked the chains about his wrists. When he told Condri and Romil, they were astounded. "Sukat MacCallern is the foremost preacher of our faith, which is why we call him Frachisus, father of citizens." Condri immediately unlocked the chains and they fell at McCullough's feet. The very next day, McCullough went out into the island of Innisfalgo and began to preach the new religion. And he went up to the Lonenstone Circle near Boldrine, where he found the Druids set in the ancient ways, about to sacrifice a human child. A stone altar had been heaped by fire, and it was proposed to throw the child upon it, and the child was being flung forwards. McCullough threw a vial that had been blessed by the saints, and it landed on the stone before the child and split it asunder. The child was not harmed. Straight away the Druids fled, but McCullough called them back, and he also called before him the king of Innisfalga, and told them henceforth to worship in the new religion. One chieftain refused, and this was Gil Colum, whose name meant servant of the dove, but he was named with irony. He was no follower of the peaceful path, and this Gil Colcom and his 3 sons desired to kill McCullough, and one night they slunk stealthily to the church which McCullough had built, and McCullough and his followers, hearing that his enemies were approaching, guided his people into the subterranean caverns beneath his church. With a loud shriek, Gil Colum and his 3 sons and his followers burst into the church. "Where are you departed?" yelled Gil Colum in anger, finding no one there. And McCullough appeared before him with his pastoral staff. Gil Colum's followers stepped back in awe. "What have you against me, Gil Colum? Why have I offended you, that you should attack my sanctuary with slaughter in mind?" "Are you McCullough, the former thief?" sneered Gil Colum, braver than his band of men. "I am Macalladus, the bishop of this land," replied McCullough solemnly. "I am a servant of Christ." Gil Colum laughed and raised his sword to smite him. McCullough, however, leant forward and tapped Gil Colum's over the heart with his pastoral staff. The impious chieftain uttered a horrendous shriek, and then his tongue clove to his mouth. After 6 hours, Gil Colum died in agony, and all those who lived on Innisfalga realized that McCullough was the one chosen to bring them to the new religion. Therefore, one evening, Manannán mac Lir himself appeared before McCullough on the foreshore. "So, it has come to this," the old god said. "We who were young together on the Isle of Destiny are gods no longer. Bitterness and a rebirth have brought you to the human state, where now you preach a new philosophy. Our journeys through life no longer converge, nor ever go in parallel directions. The people no longer need the gods of their fathers and mothers." McCullough said, "There is no returning. This is the destiny of the world, no footsteps back." Manannán shook his head. "Perhaps I could have prevented this, had I not blown you to this island, which was my last refuge." "But that was written in the Book of Destiny, Manannán, son of Lir, even before the Danu, the divine waters, first moistened the earth. People no longer believe in me, and I am so reduced to shadow, and like shadow I will be extinguished in the light of the new learning. Your spirit shall abide among the grey seas and misty mountains of this isle, for so long as one person remembers you. replied McCullough. One person, mused the ocean god. Where would I find that one? I shall remind you, replied McCullough softly. Henceforth, Innisfallaga was known as Elenvannin, the island of Manannán mac Lir, which today is known by the shortened version of the Isle of Man. McCullough himself was known first as MacCuldus and then as Mulhold, and it is as Saint Mahold that he is still venerated on the island of the ocean god. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed that story. More stories from the briny deep next week. Have fun out there.